webinar. Now, this is the second part of the commodities series. So, first off, we would like to have a small feedback from you guys. You guys are attending the second webinar today. Okay, which is hosted by Access Securities and on commodities. So, we would like to listen from you guys कि आप लोग को कैसे लग रहा है? Is the pace good? Are we at par with covering what you guys were expecting? We'll just take 2 minutes for that, and then we'll quickly run through what we did in the previous webinar, and then we'll take things ahead from there.
No, what should I say your number there?
Okay, guys, let's get started without wasting much of time. As we said, we'll just be covering this over a period of 25 to 35 minutes. Just want to keep it short. Commodities can get a bit complex and a bit heavy, so we want to keep one piecemeal at a time. So today, what we left last time was what are the factors governing commodities. Karan, do share your screen. I think it's not. Guys, can you see the screen? Do you see the presentation coming up?
Yeah, great. So, quickly recapping on what we did in the last session, that was basically about 2 weeks back. There is a lot of disturbance. So, can everybody please mute themselves?
Yeah, guys, everyone, it's a request. Please go on mute. No cross talking because I don't want you to miss out on any of the things that are being spoken on.
Yeah, much better. Thank you, guys. So we had bifurcated commodities into two. One was hard commodities and one was soft commodities. So hard commodities, we saw that they were extracted or mined from earth, and then we had soft commodities that were basically products grown
That are produced. That
yeah,
are basically
produced
by
above the
farmers.
surface of the earth. So then we saw, then we took a look at the exchanges that enable us to trade commodities, and then the frequently traded or the most, another bifurcation of commodities. Uh, Then we looked at why trade commodities, and this was quite explanatory. And as we go ahead, these points will be revisited again.
So more or less, guys, why trade commodities? The factors would remain similar for across all commodities. So what Karan had mentioned in the previous slide: inflation hedge, hedging exposure, diversification, speculation. So quick running through all the terms. Inflation is, as the cost of money increases, the commodities would
Tend to get
also the
expensive.
price would also get expensive. So that would increase your investment value. Hedging exposure, you have a physical exposure to some commodity and you expect the prices to fall or rise, which might affect your productivity or your portfolio or your financial exposure. That is when you hedge it on the exchanges. Diversification is you diversify. So there are various avenues to invest, like real estate, equities, bonds, so debt instruments, as we call it. So commodities is one of those avenues, and speculation is basically short-term trades and make some profits out of it.
Yeah. Then going ahead, we looked at the factors affecting the commodity prices. So demand and supply is certainly one, and crude and natural gas, Ashish, I think are probably one of the best examples. So अभी पिछले एक हफ्ते में अगर आप crude prices track कर रहे हो, so the major thing that is driving the crude price is basically demand and supply. Correct. So demand कहाँ से आ रहा है? So it is basically China, which is one of the biggest consumers. So wherever there is massive industrial activity, so no, invariably energy demand is high there. So now, if you guys have been tracking our commodities report, we've been mentioning about the possible stimulus package that the Chinese government is coming up with or planning, or over the past has come up with to boost the economy basically. So if there is a boost for if Chinese economy, if the Chinese manufacturing gets a boost, so something like energy products like crude oil, natural gas, they certainly are going to be in demand. And at the same time, there are supply concerns. Now, the Middle Eastern tensions that are going when Israel and Iran were at war. and there were anticipations that Israel could actually attack Iran's oil manufacturing or oil rigging units. So there was a bit of uncertainty as to what the supply would be. And now, if Iran being one of the biggest OPEC Plus members, if there is a supply, I mean, if there is a disruption in any of the rigs that are actually digging out crude oil, so there will be a supply constraint. So because of which, again, the price will go up. Now, how demand and supply affects the price of underlying, I'm assuming that majority of the people might know.
So just give an example, guys. Natural gas in the last 2 weeks has shot up by about 30%, close to about 30%. Now, why is that? Because the output of natural gas seems to be getting lower in the US. Also, the winters are supposed to be, the winters are expected to be much colder. So the consumption of natural gas is going to increase. So the demand is increasing. At the same time, the supply is being suppressed. It's reducing. So you see, there's a big disparity between what is required and what is being manufactured is what is being mined is happening. That's the reason. So if you know if there's something in shortage, you are ready to pay a higher price to acquire it, right? I hope you'll understand that. So that's demand and supply. Demand is what you want. Supply is what is available. Available in shortage, you're ready to pay a higher price. Somebody else is ready to pay much higher, much higher. As we already mentioned, that exchanges are majorly a price discovery mechanism. Exchanges follow price discovery. It's basically auction theory. So that's how demand and supply would affect. This would also cover what Karan mentioned, what I mentioned on the natural gas. It's going to be colder, so consumption is going to be higher.
Yeah.
It's like you have AC at home. Summers, your electricity bill shoots up because you keep the AC on for cooler temperatures. Similarly, in the United States, as it gets colder, people need to warm their houses. The consumption it's going to be on for much longer duration than average. That's going to increase the consumption of natural gas. So the prices are up. Geopolitical events, Karan said, with the Israel-Iran tension, you saw the prices fluctuating because someday there was like, okay, they'll bomb, they'll not bomb, they'll bomb, somebody's coming in the US. So that is the reason you saw the price fluctuation happening.
So another example of geopolitical tension was the Russia-Ukraine war. So when the war was going, Russia was at loggerheads with many of the economies. So there were concerns that Russia might shut off one particular trade route, so which would make the transportation a bit more costlier. So that was another factor. Now this was back in, I think,
2022.
Yeah. Started off in Feb 2022, was there all the way up to probably the end of 2023. But those factors did affect the prices of crude oil. And अभी अगर आप chart पर देखोगे, if you go back to crude, and you see the price action around the Russia-Ukraine war. Now I remember this distinctly because it was around Valentine's Day when the first missile was fired between. So it might sound funny, but this started off in the Feb of 2022, and it went on for about 1.5 years. So these are all factors that affect the demand and supply. And then during that time, we also had really cold winters in Europe. So that also pushed the prices of crude and natural gas significantly higher.
Guys, you could understand how involved Karan is with commodities. He remembers Valentine's Day as the missile being fired and the prices fluctuating all over. I do not remember that.
Yeah. So then we have something like currency fluctuations. Now, especially this is valid, especially globally it does affect, but when we are talking about the Indian commodities, when you're talking about the prices of the MCX contracts, that is when we see this at its best. So there might be some days when the rupee has depreciated, and we see major fluctuations in the gold prices and silver prices, gold, silver, in general, the commodities. So every other commodity basically is denominated in dollar terms. And when our rupee strengthens or weakens against the dollar, it is going to reflect in the domestic prices of commodities as well. So and then we have the government policies. गवर्नमेंट पॉलिसीज जैसे हम लोगों ने प्रीवियस वेबिनार में भी एक्सप्लेन किया था as to how one particular event, that especially budget. So there was that tampering around with the GST of gold. So gold and I think silver also was there, but gold I remember distinctly because उसके बाद जो है gold में काफी massive moves आए थे. And gold was down quite a bit and it took a while. I mean, पिछले I think 8-10 sessions का या probably 2-3 हफ्ते का move उसने एक दिन में निकाल दिया. So it was that volatile. So government policies also affect the prices of the commodities. Now, the popular commodities that are traded are gold, silver, crude, and copper. Now, again, those of you who have been very familiar with currency trading, sorry, commodity trading, आपको ये पता होगा कि अगर आप exchanges पे जाओगे, active जो भी contracts है या active जो भी commodities है, they are these four: gold, silver, crude oil, and copper. Now, how to trade commodities. Now this is not मैं practically आपको बोलूंगा नहीं कि आपको सौदा कैसे डालना है, what is the strategy that you have to use. So this is basically understanding the fundamentals of the commodities. So अगर आपको commodity आपको समझ नहीं है, something like let us take gold for example or crude oil for example. Crude oil is a classic example of and why global trends, global scenarios actually matter. So globally, if you see, if in a particular season there is excessive demand for crude oil, जैसे winters हुआ या natural gas for that matter, जैसे winters हुआ, when winters are very cool, if people in the Europe, US, they require natural gas heat exchangers and all those things to keep their houses warm. And similarly, there is a spike in electricity demand when it is extremely hot because air conditioners तभी ज़्यादा चलते हैं. Electricity generate करने के लिए you require some sort of energy source. So sometimes it is बहुत सारे I mean electricity generation के तरीके हैं, but in general whenever there is a surge in electricity energy demand in general, the prices of crude oil, the prices of natural gas, they tend to shoot up. And then there is intermarket analysis. Intermarket analysis. So there are instances where intermarket analysis has failed, but historically, if you look at a if you look at the correlation between something like gold and dollar, it tends to hold value. But sometimes, like we saw in 2023. Probably after the entire inflation thing, the Fed increasingly, I mean, raising the interest rates a lot. So, तब भी अगर आप देखोगे that entire fiasco went, I mean, the entire correlation went for a toss. But then, historically, if you see, there is a kind of intermarket analysis. I mean, there is a kind of intermarket relationship between gold and dollar or bond yields and dollars. So these are a few things that you need to understand when you are getting into commodity trading. Now, just give me a second. Yeah. So intermarket मतलब जब भी आप दो markets को compare करते हो to understand what the trend is. Correct. अभी इस पर हम लोग आगे जाकर थोड़ा डिटेल में बात करेंगे. But as of now, so intermarket अभी मैं आपको बोलूँ, for example, if you are comparing what has been the historical trend between Nifty and gold, correct, something like that. So I can show you a practical example. Just give me a second. BXY. I'll take a look at something very common, that is dollar index, and then I will plot it against say Nifty, just to check if there is sorry. Yeah. So जैसे जैसे आप ज्यादा डेटा देखोगे उसमें, you will figure out there is a bit of correlation. अब कितने अच्छे से चलता है, is it a good measure to, I mean standalone तो कुछ भी नहीं चलता है, but to understand whether if it is a good measure to analyze this intermarket analysis, is it worth the pay? Now these are all very separate topics. So I hope this clears it up. And then you have risk management. अगर आपको याद होगा, हम लोगों ने आपको बोला था कि commodities are very risky asset classes. Why? Because with events as they pan out in the US, the price effect is very much visible in the MCX prices also. So last time अगर आपको याद होगा तो मैंने आपको बोला था सोने सोने से या जो भी आप अगर स्क्रीन से उठ रहे हो, square off your position and go home. Unless and until you have the practice of sleeping with one eye open, which I'm pretty sure that most of the people will not be able to. Then there are a few risks when it comes to commodities trading. Again, there is a massive volatility, especially whenever there are US events that are lined up. And then in some commodities, you have liquidity issues. Like आपको bid ask बहुत ज़्यादा wide मिलेगा या आपके desired there will be slippages and all those things. Then you have to always remember जब भी आप एक position ले रहे हो, it is kind of leveraged. मतलब you might have seen that if you especially in options अगर आप एक 5 लाख का contract ले रहे हो उसके सामने आपसे 50,000 रुपया पे कर रहे हो, that extra amount is basically a kind of like a leverage. But उसमें कैसा है कि because it's an option contract and you're buying it, so your losses are limited. But at times there are people who prefer trading on leverage in commodities and all those things. Though in India it's quite capped, and we have vigilant people looking and making sure that things don't go out of the way. But then from an individual point of view, if you are leveraged, the losses are going to be massive. And then there are external factors. Now, a few factors, as I've told you, they pan out as and when the US data is out, or as and when things are developing in the US markets. So those are a few external factors. So futures more safe to options. See, it depends on what you're looking for. Now, when it comes to FNO, we have a separate session wherein we have explained what is the difference between futures and options. But I would refrain from commenting on whether futures are safe, options are safe. One thing I would tell you is there is risk involved in both, because the probability of a trader losing money in both is there. Be it options, be it futures, whatever it is. So safer asset ऐसे नहीं बोल सकते, but what I can say is in options, especially if you are long, correct, so your loss is limited to the amount of premium paid. But in futures, if your position is open, your losses can literally run wild unless and until you square off the position or the market starts moving in your favor. So what I'll do is I'll pause for a minute, and if you guys have any questions, I'll open up the floor for that. We'll just pause for literally 60 seconds, and then we'll pick up from there. Till then, if you have any queries, if you have any questions that you need to ask, please put it in the chat box. Rohit, do we have any questions on our YouTube channel?
So in our YouTube channel, we are having the question that how we can access the video recording. So we have already uploaded our this first session recordings already in the YouTube. So if you go into this access securities section, and there is a live section is there, and there you can find all our previous sessions recordings related to the futures, related to the options, related to the technical analysis, and the commodities chapter 1. So this is for the YouTube people who are attending this session from our YouTube. Karan, we can go ahead for the other slides.
Okay. So now that majority of you are clear, so we'll go on and look at what are the factors that are affecting gold. So whenever you think of gold, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Forget that we are talking about commodities, forget that we are talking about anything. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when it comes to gold? Now there is another question that I had asked. अगर आपको याद होगा तो मैंने आपको बोला था कि ये एक आपका homework होगा. We say that gold is an inflation hedge. So after the COVID, there was a massive spike in the inflation, but then gold prices did not move. Okay, some I see gold is safe haven. I think yes, it is considered as safe haven. But what is the first thing that comes to our minds when we talk about gold? Yeah, so we have a few. Yeah, yes, investment for marriage or future. So basically, जब भी हम लोग गोल्ड की बात करते हैं, the first thing that comes to our mind is a necklace or a bangle, trusted asset class. Yes, it is. But then when it comes to the Indian market, in India, other than the financial value, we also have something called as an emotional value. Emotional value, you might have, those who have daughters, sisters. So you will second key buying a piece of jewelry for your wife, your mother, your daughter, your sister. It's a it's a beautiful moment, right? So सबसे पहले जब भी हम लोग gold ध्यान में आते हैं, we think of jewelry, and then comes the investment part of it, the bullions, the coins, and all those things. But the first thing that comes to our mind is gold. But there is more to gold than just jewelry. So as someone just mentioned that it is a trusted asset class. Yes, it is a trusted asset class. Now here are a few reasons as to why gold holds that particular value. Now, when we were talking about the types of commodities, we spoke about the commodities that are mined from below the surface of the earth, or that are mined from the earth. So, जब भी आप कुछ mine करते हो, there is a limit to the supply. I mean, the supply is limited, and then because the supply is limited, there is a bit of scarcity. So that is one of the reasons as to why gold holds the value that it commands. Then comes the historical users' money. So whenever we talk to our grandparents and all those people who have seen really bad times during world wars and all those things, correct? So उन लोग बोलते हैं कि आपके पास थोड़ा तो gold होना चाहिए. Now I distinctly remember speaking to someone, and he had mentioned that when there was war, and they had to move from one place to another, so they used to carry gold, because at that point money probably would be available, would not be available, but the gold that you hold with you has that certain value, right? So that is why historically gold has been used as a mode of transfer, sorry, a medium of transfer. ऐसे बोल सकते हैं कि gold की ये value है, so I'll give you probably 1 gram of gold, and इसके exchange में you give me this much worth of so and all those things. So basically it is as good as wealth or money. And then we have safe haven asset. जैसे we saw a few of the people comment. I'm sorry, I'm down with a bad throat. But yeah, जब भी हम लोग safe haven assets की बात करते हैं, so as I just mentioned, so whenever अभी for example रशिया यूक्रेन का जो war हुआ, या Israel Palestine का जो हुआ, so when during uncertainty, okay, your banks, your accounts might go for a toss and all those things, because they are all basically financial institutions. अगर आपकी इकोनॉमी परफॉर्म नहीं कर रही है, there is a chance that those institutions might also go down. ऐसे टाइम पर हैविंग फिजिकल गोल्ड इन योर हैंड गिव्स यू अ सेंस ऑफ सिक्योरिटी कि मेरे पास इतना गोल्ड है, इसका इतना फिक्स्ड वैल्यू है, एंड इफ आई गो टू एक्सचेंज इट, इसके रिटर्न में मुझे कुछ मिल सकता है. आई मीन कुछ मिल सकता है एज इन आई कैन गेट समथिंग दैट इज इक्विवेलेंट टू द अमाउंट ऑफ gold that I'm exchanging, the value of the gold that I'm exchanging. So that is why it is considered as a safe haven, because it holds money, it holds value. And then again, physical qualities hai, aesthetic appeal hai, as I mentioned. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I will once I get home, I'll have the ginger tea. Thank you. So it has that physical. Now, when I'm talking about the physical qualities, the aesthetic appeal, that is when I was talking about the jewelry, your bangles and all those things. And then you have industrial applications and uses. Now, you pick up any electronic device, the mobile or the laptop on which you're watching this webinar has got some amount of gold. Your chipsets, your computer processors, they have some amount of gold. The TVs, anything that you see around you which is electronic and is something that commonly people buy has some amount of gold in it. Because why? Gold is probably one of the best conductors of electricity. Gold is one of the best conductors of heat, so uska industrial application bhi hota hai. Now another reason, I mean Coming on to why we should trade gold, as I mentioned, it is invariably considered as an inflation hedge. Inflation hedge matlab, now I'm pretty sure that people know what inflation really means. And जब भी हम लोग inflation बोलते हैं, your the amount of money that you have, say 100 rupees, correct? So say back in 1990s, hypothetically, for 100 rupees you could get, say, I don't know, I was not there back then, but say you could get, say, 100 quintals of rice. But आज अगर आप 100 rupees लेके जाओगे, you will get probably I don't know, one kg, maybe one and a half kg of rice. So that is basically loss in the value of the money that you're holding. So ऐसे time पर, now those of you who have been around in that, I mean, pretty sure your grandparents might have been around, so they would have told you ki tabhi gold probably 2500 rupees per 10 grams trade kara tha, and today you know where it is. So over the years, as money has lost its value, I mean, as inflation has risen, your gold prices have also risen. So that is one of the reason why people prefer having gold in their portfolio as an asset class. Sorry about that. Then safe haven, I just explained why gold is considered as a safe haven. And then comes the portfolio diversification. Abhi, say for example, you have money invested in equities, you have money invested in government bonds, and you're looking for some other asset class wherein your money will consistently keep growing at a particular rate. Say for example, आपने over the years portfolio बनाया है for probably your kids or for some sort of goal that you have in your mind, correct? आपने इक्विटी में डाला है, आपने एफडीज में डाला है, एंड देन आपने थोड़ा गोल्ड में भी डाला है. So if you see, all of them will have a kind of return, correct? But there will be instances where there is a sudden drop in the equities. 2008 आपको पता है, there was a sudden drop in the equity market. 2020 there was a sudden drop in the equity market. ऐसे टाइम पर समथिंग लाइक गोल्ड, भले ही वो थोड़ा फ्लक्चुएट होगा, बट कंसिस्टेंटली अगर आप देखोगे, द रिटर्न्स हैव बीन ब्रॉडली पॉजिटिव. या अगर आपको अपने रिटर्न्स का थोड़ा डिविएशन या वेरिएशन आपको कम करना है, दैट इज व्हेन यू एंटर इनटू असेट क्लासेस लाइक गोल्ड. बिकॉज यहाँ पर because it holds that safe haven title and all those things, you can expect lesser volatility as compared to one of the riskier assets. इक्विटी जो है आपका वो रिस्कियर एसेट हुआ है, इक्विटी जो है आपका रिस्कियर एसेट है, एंड वहां पर माइल्ड थिंग्स लाइक समथिंग लाइक पॉलिसी चेंजेस, उसका जो इफेक्ट है बहुत ड्रास्टिक हो सकता है. इट्स नॉट माइल्ड, आई मीन इट्स अ बिग थिंग. सो आई रिमेंबर बैक इन द डे देयर वाज अ मैसिव कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स adjustment that was announced, and we saw the equity markets react to it. But at the time pe your gold, though there will be though there will be some variation in the prices of the gold, but broadly जो variation होगा when you compare it to the equity market will be slightly lesser. I'll just take a minute's break, and इतने में अगर किसी को कुछ query है, कुछ पूछना है, please let me know.
So Vikramji said correct. Like you should have a ginger tea actually, because as your throat is not clear. But I like thank you for that delivering this session and this like type, and still like you are able to deliver the session in a very good way. So I would like to thumbs up for you, and means if anyone having any queries related to the commodity markets, request you to please put in the chat box.
I'm really sorry, guys, but we'll continue this session later. What I would really request is, यहाँ तक अगर आपको चीजें समझ में आई, I just want to show one more slide. Just give me a second. Yeah. So this slide is basically, comparing inflation over the years. Now this is US inflation with
Madam, sorry
the
to
prices
interrupt.
of.
Your slide is not visible right now.
Sorry.
Your slide is not visible. If you can just share
Okay,
it.
okay. Yeah, sure. Just give me a second. Can you see the slide now?
Yes, now it is clear. Good to go.
Okay, sure. So, so we have a question as to what are the main factors to consider while trading gold. So that's a really good question. So one thing that you have to look at is what is happening globally. If there is any uncertainty around the globe, that might trigger something or trigger a capital flight to safe haven. ठीक है. So broadly अगर आप देखोगे asset classes are classified into two. One is your riskier asset classes, something like your equities, and another one is safe haven, something like your gold. So whenever there is absolute stability in the global market, there are no wars going on, people are willing to take risk. Why? Because risk taking gives you higher returns. I mean, investing in riskier assets will lead to higher returns. But whenever there is an uncertainty, something like a Russia-Ukraine war or Iran-Israel tussle and all those things, जो स्टेबिलिटी है ग्लोबली जो आपको दिख रही है दैट इज या सो वो थोड़ा अनस्टेबल हो जाता है दोस थिंग्स स्टार्ट बिकमिंग अ बिट जिटरी एंड दैट इज व्हेन रिस्कियर एसेट्स lose that extra return factor and go on to become absolutely risky because ऐसे टाइम पे there could be a news that can actually trigger a massive sell off in your equities. Correct. So ऐसे टाइम पे you go to safe haven assets. That is when you go to something like gold. Why? Because मैंने आपको बोला कि gold it holds value and whenever there are scenarios wherein we have instability in the economy, that is when we go on to safe haven assets like gold. So this is one of the thing. Another thing is you have to look at the inflation. You also have to look at what the central banks are doing. Now ये मैं आपको आगे के slide में बताऊंगा as to why it is important. It has got something to do with the homework that I had given you. So this is basically a comparison of inflation over the years. अगर आप यहाँ पर देख सकते हो, this is from 1983 से हम लोग को data जो है काफी clear है. If you see around 2007 2008 आपका inflation जो है वो थोड़ा drop हुआ. Now 2007 2008 if you remember that was basically the subprime crisis year. So there are instances when your intermarket analysis it goes for a toss. So this is a classic example of that. आपका inflation drop हुआ but your gold was going higher because there was another instability that was making something that was making safe haven a lot more attractive. So that is when we saw an up move, though your inflation was down. But if you see since to the 2020, since mid 2020 when we had all those stimulus packages coming from the US government, ऐसे time पर your inflation shot up, but at the same time gold was also going higher. The reason being वो safe haven का एक demand आया. अभी फिलहाल there is a whole new scenario that is playing out and it has got more to do with the US presidential elections. So that is the reason you see this sort of wild gap between the inflation and the gold. Now this is a monthly chart, so वो भी आपको ध्यान में रखना है कि ये जो move आपको दिख रहा है that is basically monthly. Now another interesting thing is the interest rate and gold. So how many of you have an answer for the question that I asked in the previous webinar? And my question was, despite inflation going higher, we did not see gold prices rally. अगर आप ये scenario में देखोगे, this is a monthly chart. So somewhere in between 20 mid or late 2019, all the way to probably mid 2023, we did not see gold rally much. So if someone could tell me as to why that happened, it has got something to do with the interest rates, the US interest rates. Rohit, do we have a reply from our YouTube channel?
No, we are not having any kind of reply from our YouTube channel.
Okay, gold is more related to सिक्योरिटी यस बट सो अगर आपको याद होगा 2023 सो मतलब बेसिकली फ्रॉम दिस पॉइंट ऑन द फेड स्टार्टेड रेजिंग इंटरेस्ट रेट्स एक्सपोनेंशियली सो ऐसे टाइम पर क्या हुआ बिकॉज गोल्ड हैज जीरो यील्ड मतलब गोल्ड होल्ड करने का आपको कुछ यस actually it's the other way around so fed interest rate started going higher that is where that is why gold was basically flat so when we're talking about safe haven assets gold is not the only safe haven asset us bonds or dollar is also a safe haven asset why because it is based on the assumption that us will never default correct अगर आप यूएस बॉन्ड्स में पैसे लगाओगे वो पैसे आपको मिलने हैं वापस दैट इज द assumption behind that so what happened was गोल्ड होल्ड करने का आपको कुछ इंसेंटिव नहीं मिलता आई मीन यू डोंट गेट एन इंटरेस्ट रेट फॉर होल्डिंग गोल्ड मैं फिजिकल की बात कर रहा हूँ या अगर आप फ्यूचर्स होल्ड करोगे तो आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट द एसजीपीस एंड ऑल दोस थिंग्स दोज आर बेसिकली डेरिवेटिव प्रोडक्ट्स ऑफ गोल्ड not exactly derivative products but it's not as good as holding an underlying physical gold hold करने जैसे नहीं है having an SGP but gold अगर आप physical hold करोगे उस पे आपको कोई interest देता है It's a question to the crowd. अगर आप समझिए if you're holding 1 kg worth of gold, yes, but dollar hold करने का at one point interest rate positive आ रहा है. So imagine आपको कोई बोले कि you know what this is a very safe asset. इसमें आप पैसा डालो and ये इसमें आप पैसा invest करने के लिए मैं आपको सामने से returns भी दूंगा. So getting the scenario. So it is like telling कि you know what ये खाना है ये आप खा लेना and ये खाने के लिए मैं आपको पैसे भी दूंगा. Not the perfect example, but this is what happened. So that is when people started looking at the positive yields that the dollar started yielding. So ऐसे situation में what happened was it was between holding gold or dollar. Gold अगर मैं hold करता my yield from gold was zero because nobody was paying me interest rate. But अगर मैं डॉलर या डॉलर बॉन्ड्स होल्ड करूंगा या यूएस बॉन्ड्स होल्ड करूंगा आई वाज गेटिंग एन इंटरेस्ट एंड दैट वाज पॉजिटिव सो दैट आई मीन पॉजिटिव में बोलूं तो पॉजिटिव जब मैं बोल रहा हूँ इट इज बेसिकली इन्फ्लेशन एडजस्टेड सो हिस्टोरिकली होल्डिंग डॉलर बिकॉज इट इज अ सेफ हेवन because of the interest rates and all those things आपका yield जो है डॉलर का used to be close to zero but once the interest rates started going up so this was that phase ये पूरे फेज में the dollar yields started becoming positive. That is when people started weighing that both are safe haven assets. गोल्ड में अगर मैं इन्वेस्ट करूंगा तो मुझे yield नहीं मिलेगा डॉलर में अगर मैं इन्वेस्ट करूंगा तो मुझे yield मिलेगा. That was the point when dollar started getting a better safe haven appeal than gold. So that is the answer to the question as to why gold did not perform when the interest rates were rising or when there was a massive inflation rise in the US. So I'm really sorry we have to cut it off right here because we are also out of time. So अगर आपको कुछ query है कुछ पूछना है please put it in the chat box. I'll just stop sharing my screen but we'll be available for another 2 minutes and then we will call it a day. I'm really sorry about the bad throat. It's basically the weather that has taken a toll.
So thank you so much, Karan, for delivering the session. Means during this back road also, and I'm sure our all the participants who are attending this session much appreciated for this and the way the delivery you have done it. Thank you so much for this, Karan and Ashish. So if you have any queries, anything, then you can directly put in the chat box. And those who are attending this session from my YouTube channel, the comment sections are on right now. So you can directly put in the chat box, like if you have any queries. So we'll wait for means 1 minute or more, 60 seconds more. And then we can wind up the session and we'll meet you next Tuesday. So we are having the question, Karan, one from our WebEx, if you can take it.
Yeah. So the simple answer to this is कि gold, one thing you have to remember is equities are a riskier asset. So you get better rewards for taking higher risk. Correct. So that is the reason आप जो बोल रहे हो कि अगर लॉन्ग टर्म में मैं गोल्ड होल्ड करूंगा, that is I think what you're asking. Yeah, so see, short term में gold थोड़ा ऊपर नीचे हो सकता है based on what are the factors and all those. I mean the global factors and all those things. But if you look at it from a long term point of view, gold returns might. I mean, this is not something that I've checked yet, but this is something I'd like to check. But see, gold, agar aap, that depends. If you are buying physical gold, then I can tell you that the ornaments that your grandparents might have made when they were young, and अगर आज आप उसका वैल्यू कंपेयर करो तो रिटर्न्स वुड बी एक्सपोनेंशियली हाई. सो अगर लॉन्ग टर्म की अगर आप बात करो, देन आई एम अज्यूमिंग यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट एटलीस्ट 10 years 15 years on that sort of time horizon. Then gold would give you slightly, I would not say comparatively to compared to equity, but gold के रिटर्न्स आपको पॉजिटिव दिखेंगे. One thing, one straightforward reply to this is, in equities you get returns for taking risk. Correct. You are investing in a business basically. बट गोल्ड वैसे नहीं है. गोल्ड का इनहेरेंट थोड़ा एक इंट्रिंसिक वैल्यू है, एक इनहेरेंट वो वैल्यू कैरी करता है. इट इज बेसिकली एप्रिसिएशन ऑन दैट यू आर गेटिंग. आई मीन ऑन द वैल्यू ऑफ द गोल्ड. दैट इज व्हाट यू आर गेटिंग. See, one of the ways of holding, one of the ways of investing in gold is sovereign bonds. So I at no point have said that sovereign bonds are not as good as gold or any of those things. But one of the ways of investing in gold is sovereign bonds. एंड सेकेंडली सी, अगर आप एक, जैसे मैंने बोला कि इंडिया में गोल्ड का एक इमोशनल वैल्यू है. करेक्ट. नाउ महेश जी, assuming that you're married, if it's your wife's birthday, or if it's your wife's birthday, and she has asked you for a gold chain, instead of that if you give a sovereign gold bond, तो क्या होगा? Correct. So in India, gold has a emotional value attached to it. Yeah. We all can imagine. Those who are married can imagine what would happen if you do that. So if we don't have any more questions, Rohit, can we end the session here?
Yes, definitely we can end the session here, as there was a very good engagement from our participants who are attending both from WebEx and YouTube. And I'm sure like we'll in future we're going to continue to deliver these types of sessions. So let's next week we'll be covering again on the commodities market. That will be on the chapter 3, that how you have to take the trades into the gold and what are the important factors. So that we'll be taking in the next upcoming week. That's on Tuesday. So with this, we'd like to end the session here. And thank you so much, Karan. And thank you so much, Ashish, for giving such a great inputs. And once again, thank you to all our participants who are attending this session. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining, guys. Thank you so much.